few natural disasters are as terrifying as landslides. Across the globe, Asia, South America, and the Caribbean islands have seen the highest death tolls from these catastrophic events. Wherever there are steep slopes, there's always a risk that they might collapse. Landslides cause serious injuries, significant property damage, and in some cases, loss of life. They also disrupt vital resources. Water supplies, fisheries, sewage systems, forests, and transportation networks are all impacted. Almost every landslide has multiple contributing factors. It happens when gravity causes a mass of rock, debris, or earth to move downhill. These landslides are most likely to occur on slopes already at risk due to heavy rainfall, snowmelt, erosion, earthquakes, volcanic activity, or even human intervention. In fact, a combination of these factors is often what triggers the disaster. It may seem like landslides are rare because you don't hear about them often, but in reality, they happen more frequently than you think. Welcome back to Daily Dose of Info. Today, we're going to take a look at some of the biggest landslides caught on camera before we do that pop quiz. Which type of weather event is most commonly associated with triggering landslides? A. Blizzards. B. Thunderstorms. C. Heavy rainfall. D. Tornadoes. Mount St. Helens volcano. In 1980, a brave student managed to film one of the most dangerous and massive landslides in history. It happened when the side of the mountain collapsed, similar to popping the top off a shaken soda can. Volcanic gases shot out at speeds of 670 miles per hour, causing a devastating landslide that wiped out trees, homes, and wildlife in a 13-kilometer radius. As far as 21 kilometers away from the volcano, the blast felled trees in rows, leaving them as bare as toothpicks. Further still, trees stood but were severely scorched. A second explosion followed, creating a mushroom cloud that reached 12 miles into the sky. 57 people were killed, and the region suffered long-term economic damage, with unemployment surging. Landslides are a known danger in volcanic areas, as volcanic cones are steep and unstable after eruptions. Gilgit-Baltistan, Pakistan. In October 2021, a particularly fierce monsoon in Pakistan triggered a landslide that struck a passenger bus, killing 16 people, including 4 Pakistani army officials. As we've seen time and again, monsoons in South Asia are unforgiving. In 2020, Pakistan experienced record rainfall, leading to 400 fatalities, 390 injuries, and the destruction of over 217,000 homes. The months of August and September saw severe urban flooding, which resulted in hundreds of deaths and injuries, along with the destruction of more than 300,000 homes. The Sindh region, in particular, felt the worst of the devastation and was declared an emergency zone on August 25th of that year. This landslide occurred in Gilgit-Baltistan, a northern region surrounded by 4 major mountain ranges, all prone to landslides. The bus was pushed into a roadside ditch in Skardu, where it was buried under mud and rocks. While relief teams continue to search, authorities have warned that survival chances are slim. Sri Lanka landslide. Monsoons in South Asia are brutal. The heavy rains can lead to anything from electricity outages to massive devastation. In the last few years, the storms have grown more severe, fueled by rapid urban growth, changes in farming methods, rising aerosol levels, greenhouse gases, and a warmer Indian Ocean. In 2016, torrential rains caused a massive landslide in Sri Lanka that swept through 3 villages. Over 200 families went missing, with many feared trapped under debris. So far, 16 bodies have been found, and 180 people were rescued. Over 300 soldiers, supported by local residents, worked relentlessly to sift through the rubble, recovering more bodies. The total population of the villages is unclear, but areas of this size usually have around 1,000 to 1,500 people. Alongside the landslides, the rains also caused severe flooding in Colombo, the capital, destroying tens of thousands of homes. Pangi Valley, Himachal Pradesh. Pangi, a remote and rugged town in Himachal Pradesh, India, is known for its isolation and harsh terrain. The Pangi Valley, where residents live between 7,000 and 11,000 feet above sea level, is one of the most secluded regions in India. The Shash Pass, a narrow route for vehicles, is only open from mid-June to October, but it's often closed due to heavy snow. It's considered one of the world's most dangerous roads. In such a remote place, natural disasters can hit hard. This year, a landslide caused major destruction to the region's apple orchards, sending workers scrambling to find shelter as massive boulders came tumbling down. Tragically, one boulder struck a house and killed a 40-year-old Nepali man. The workers managed to capture the terrifying moment when the rocks broke off the mountainside, and the footage is both awe-inspiring and frightening. Before we go on, hit the subscribe button and click that bell icon to get notifications when we upload Vargas Tragedy. In the winter of 1999, Venezuela faced one of the worst natural disasters in its history, the Vargas Tragedy. Torrential rains caused flash floods and mud flows that killed tens of thousands of people and completely devastated the region's infrastructure. Entire towns were buried under up to 10 feet of mud, while many homes were simply swept out to sea. The disaster left people scrambling for safety, as entire populations were wiped out. Before this tragedy, Vargas had seen mudslides and flooding, but nothing of this magnitude. The previous significant event had occurred in 1951, involving far less rainfall and smaller landslides. A particularly intense storm in 1991 dumped a record 35.9 inches of rain in just a few days, triggering soil instability and mudslides that foreshadowed the destruction to come. To this day, the effects of the Vargas tragedy are felt, and in 2011, 3 films produced by Venezuelan filmmakers were released, showing the enduring scars left on the people of Vargas by this horrific event. Sierra Leone landslide. Florida coastlines are naturally prone to landslides, and Florida's landscape makes it particularly vulnerable. The combination of extreme weather, fragile soil, heavy rainfall, and steep slopes creates the perfect conditions for these disasters. On August 14, 2017, both Sierra Leone and Florida were hit with unusually high rainfall, 20 inches more than the average for that time of year. The ground reached its saturation point and couldn't absorb any more water. While this typically causes runoff, the water here seeped into cracks, lubricating the ground atop a hill. Eventually, gravity did its job, causing a massive slab of earth to slide down, taking trees with it. The landslide sent a flood of muddy brown water into the streets of both Sierra Leone and Florida. Relief workers reported that over 600 people were missing, and around 300 were found dead. Many more bodies were recovered washed up on the beach. Landslides tend to strike the same areas over and over because each event makes the land more unstable. Areas with weak or fractured materials on steep slopes are especially vulnerable. Though the landslide may have happened in just seconds, its consequences lasted for months. The good news is that landslides can be prevented through better engineering practices and smart land use planning, reducing the risks and minimizing the damage in the future. Big Sur, California. This landslide was so enormous, it was captured on camera all the way from space. Jaw-dropping before and after satellite images of the California coastline, released in 2017, showed the sheer scale of the disaster. On May 20th, 2017, over 1 million tons of rocks and dirt slid across Highway 1, which hugs the Pacific Ocean. There had been a smaller landslide earlier that spring, and it's believed that this smaller event may have triggered the larger one, altering the coastline dramatically. California's coastline is particularly vulnerable to these types of collapses, though fortunately, the affected areas are not densely populated. We moved a huge amount of material here, tens of thousands, if not 100,000 yards, said experts. The destruction stretched over 0.3 miles of the highway, and 16 acres of land were pushed out into the Big Sur coastline. The landslide forced the closure of Highway 1 for nearly a year while repairs were made. The highway is open again now, but it's still a risky stretch. Small rocks still fall from the cliffs above, and you can often hear them tumbling down. Thistle, Utah. Thistle, Utah is now a ghost town, but in April 1983, it was a small, bustling community in Spanish Fork Canyon until a massive landslide struck. The landslide blocked the Spanish Fork River and trapped 85 million cubic meters of water, causing the town to flood. Luckily, residents were able to evacuate before the full force of the landslide hit, but most buildings were destroyed, with only a few surviving. The real danger came from the potential failure of the landslide dam, which would have caused a catastrophic flood downstream. The disaster became one of the most expensive in US history, with $200 million spent on fixing the damage. The landslide was triggered by unusually warm weather that caused rapid snowmelt, which saturated the slope. After the incident, engineers built a drainage system to prevent any further risk of dam failure. Today, if you take a ride on US 89 or the California Zephyr train, you can still see remnants of the once thriving town. Huascaran debris avalanche. On May 31, 1970, Peru experienced one of the deadliest natural disasters in its history, the Ancash earthquake, registering a massive 7.9 on the Richter scale, triggered a devastating debris avalanche that buried the town of Yungay and 10 other villages. The landslide, known as the Huascaran debris avalanche, was caused by the collapse of an unstable portion of Mount Huascaran, which had been considered a risk for some time. In fact, a smaller collapse had already occurred in 1962, destroying nearby villages. What made the 1970 disaster so catastrophic was the failure of the Peruvian government to warn locals about the impending danger. They actively suppressed the news of the earthquake's potential effects, advising people not to panic. This left the region unprepared for the scale of the disaster that followed. After the earthquake struck, the shock destabilized a nearby glacier and snow mass, which then surged downhill, picking up dirt, rocks, and water, creating a massive mudflow. The mudflow reached speeds of up to 270 miles per hour, and heavier debris may have been propelled forward at an astonishing 680 miles per hour. Just 1 minute and 45 seconds after the earthquake, the landslide struck with full force. The impact was catastrophic. Yungay and the surrounding villages were buried under 20 meters of debris in some places. The avalanche claimed the lives of approximately 25,000 people, making it one of the deadliest glacier-related disasters in history. Only about 400 people survived. The landslide covered a staggering 3,700 acres of land, leaving large boulders and rocks scattered across the area. Although much of the mud eventually washed away in the following days, the debris and rocks still remain visible in the area to this day. Answer the question we asked at the beginning of the video: is heavy rainfall most commonly associated with triggering landslides? And it's time to say goodbye. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss out our next video. Thanks for watching.